What's up guys? In this short video I'm going to be talking about the true meaning of the golden rule and how it possibly doesn't mean what you think it does.
You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
And make sure you watch all the way to the end of the video because I'm going to share exactly why this one rule is the single most important rule that everyone should live by. That's coming up next. And welcome into the Wizard Factory channel, a platform dedicated to giving you the spiritual tools and mindsets to create more freedom, meaning, and empowerment in your life. If that sounds good to you, consider subscribing to the channel down below and hitting that bell notification. So the golden rule, let's talk about it. Everyone knows the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You've probably been taught this as a very young child, either by your parents or perhaps in school. It's morality 101, and it actually really is the only rule that you ever need to be a truly good person. Well, what is a good person? In short, I would define a good person as simply someone who understands truly and respects the rights of others. People really tend to overcomplicate this, over-intellectualize this, but it really, in its fundamental essence, is incredibly simple. If you'd like to go more in depth about what I mean when I say the word rights, you can check out a recent video I did about natural law explained simply, which you can watch here or in the link in the description box below. So this golden rule, what does that actually mean? You might say, well, everyone likes to be treated differently, right? That's true. We all have different ways that we'd like to be treated. But to think this way, everyone wants to be treated differently, is actually exactly what the golden rule does not mean. And I'll explain.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
So what's the one thing that we all have in common? We want to be treated the way we want to be treated. That's the universal part. And that's the key to this. So everyone's line is in a different place, but we all have one. We all have boundaries, right? It's extremely healthy to have boundaries. We should all have boundaries and know how to effectively communicate those to others so that they can be known and understood. So communication is very important to let others know what we are and aren't okay with, but of course there are always going to be some gray areas. But if we could just get this mostly right, we would all be so much better off, right? So what this truly comes down to is consent and free will. You can never consent to have your consent violated. It is absolutely impossible. There's no way to do it because consent is defined by your willingness, your openness to that thing. So with that said, there are 7 forms of consent violation that constitute wrongdoings. They are as follows: assault, murder, theft, rape, trespass, coercion, and lying. Maybe I'll do a video going into more depth about each of these, how I would define them, but for the purposes of these videos, we all basically know what these things are, right? So the key here is, it is literally impossible to do any of those things without violating the consent of others, because that is what defines those words. That's what makes those things what they are, is they are a form of assault of the boundaries of another person. And therefore, it is impossible to do any of these things to another while being okay with those things being done to you. So in doing any of these things to someone else, you are inherently a hypocrite because you are executing a performative contradiction. You are doing something to someone else that you would not or could not possibly want done to you. Now again, sure, there are going to be some blurry edges to each of these things in what does and doesn't constitute that thing. Some will define those things differently than others. But with each of them, there are very clear objective executions of those behaviors that anyone can see. unless you're just completely stupid or utterly a psychopath. So I want to be extremely clear about this next point. It's very, very important. Just because there are subjective areas to these aspects, to these behaviors, does not mean that objective morality does not exist at all. That is a logical fallacy and a very dangerous one. You know, if you think that just coming up to some random person on the street and bashing them over the head with a shovel, or, you know, taking another person and violently raping them is all just subjective and completely relative, or that there's no meaningful actual difference between murder and self-defense, then you are intellectually invalid. I mean, your brain is broken if you can't tell the difference. And to say there is none, or that to discount that because there are some subjective gray areas, is frankly just intellectually lazy and just plain stupid. I think I've made my point there, so let's move on. So basically, in a nutshell, what I'm saying here is this can really be looked at like this. Your freedom ends where another's begins. And really, that's not so bad. That ensures that everyone has equal rights, equal freedom, and that we're all mutually respecting each other's boundaries. If you see that as limiting or unfair, then you might be a narcissist or a psychopath. So perhaps an even better way of looking at this is, instead of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, don't do unto others as you would not want them to do unto you. So your freedom ends where another's begins, your boundaries end where another's begins, and that's really it. It actually is extremely simple to understand. And yet we see so much hypocrisy of this in the real world. People think, oh, well, yeah, you know, like don't steal, don't murder. It seems so simple, but yet people find ways to justify it, to find some kind of relativistic excuse or justification for it. Well, it's different in this situation because X, Y, Z. But these things are objective, they're universal, they're constant. It does not change depending on the context. It doesn't change depending on where it happens. It doesn't change depending on who does it or what their reasons for are. The only thing that matters is the action itself and whether the consent of another person is being violated. That's really just the bottom line. No need to overcomplicate it. So if we could even just mitigate this down to just the gray areas, then we would have so much more freedom and harmony in the world than currently what we have. Especially when these rules are applied consistently to the institutions such as government and other systematic institutions that we're constantly making these exceptions for. So this rule is by far the single most important thing for any human being to come to truly understand, because it is the one rule that determines whether a state of freedom or slavery exists in the world. Now, I would love for you to tell me something more important than that. So that's what I have for you on this topic. These are my thoughts on the true meaning of the Golden Rule. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. Let me know in the comments. Let's keep the discussion going. If you agree, if you disagree, or you have something to add, drop it down below. Also, let me know down below, what other videos would you like me to cover? What other topics would you like to hear me discuss? I hope you did get value out of this video. If you did, please smash the like button so that more people can see this content and help the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.